This video is brought to you by Sailrite. If you have a retractable awning and the fabric is worn out and needs to be replaced, this video will show you how to take down your old awning and make a new awning and reinstall it. The process of removing the old fabric from a retractable awning is made easy following the steps shown in this video. After your awning's been removed, we'll show you how to take measurements so that you can easily construct a new awning using the Sunbrella Marine Grade or Awning Grade fabric from Sailrite. This video will even walk you through the steps of how to sew up a new panel using that fabric and then how to reinstall that awning fabric into your old retractable awning frame. So let's get started, and we'll show you how to make a brand new retractable awning fabric panel out of Sunbrella fabric from Sailrite. Sunbrella fabric is 100% solution dyed acrylic. It will last years and years to come. It beats any kind of other fabric you can install on a retractable awning. The first step is to remove the old fabric from the retractable frame structure. As you can see, this fabric and the threads are worn out. They're rotted through, and it's time to replace it with new fabric from Sailrite. To remove this fabric, retract your awning all the way to its resting position against the structure. The fabric on a retractable awning is usually slid into a groove, and this awning has a stop clamp. These stop clamps will actually crimp the cording to keep the awning taut. In order to remove the fabric, we must remove the end covers on one side of the awning frame. They're simply screwed into place. So remove the screws and the end covers are easily removed. Typically, the end without the manual crank is the easiest end to work from, so remove the end covers from that end. We've loosened the stop clamp on the other side of the valance. Now we're going to remove the stop clamp here on the opposite end. Okay. Here you can see how it works again. Don't lose the stop clamps. Now simply grasp the end of the valance fabric and pull it through the channel. With a length of rope, securely tie the awning arms in place as shown here in the video. This will make it possible to unroll the fabric from the frame structure without the awning arms extending. We'll do that at the same position on the opposite end of the awning. With the arms securely in place, we can now use the electric motor here. We're using the electric motor via remote control to unroll the awning fabric from the roller bar. When initially unrolling the fabric, be sure to pull the fabric over the front valance bar as shown here in the video. If your retractable awning does not have an electronic motor, you can use the manual override to crank the awning down. There is a groove on the main roller. You'll see it here. You want to stop it so that that groove gives you easy access to pull the fabric through the channel. So right about here. Retractable awning frame styles vary. Ours has a stop clamp on the front bar to hold the main body of fabric in place. We'll release that screw to the stop clamp so that we can pull the fabric through. There's also a stop clamp on this end as well. We'll release that and remove it. Now we can pull the fabric through the channel easily. If you like, you may be able to use the cording that is installed in the sleeve of your old awning, so you may want to remove that. If you'd like to order new awning and sling chair spline cording, Sailrite sells it. After you've removed your old fabric cover from your retractable awning, it's time to take measurements. We'll take a length measurement all the way from the top sleeve all the way to the bottom edge of the valance. Include those measurements together. Then take a measurement of the valance itself. Write those measurements down on a piece of paper. Now we need to take a width measurement all the way across the awning. Write that measurement down as well. Now, with those three measurements, we can determine the exact finished size of the awning and how much fabric we need. The A measurement is the width measurement. That's all the way across the entire awning, and you need to add 4 inches, and that 4 inches will be used for a 2-inch hem on both edges. That's the required width. The B measurement is the length, including the valance butted up to the main awning panel. You'll need to add 4.5 inches. That 4.5 inches will be used for the 1.5-inch sleeves at the top, the bottom of the main awning panel, and the top of the valance. Now that we have those 2 measurements, all we need to do is go to the Sailrite website to figure out exactly how much material we need. Pick the fabric of your choice. On the fabric's landing page, you'll find a fabric calculator button. Click that button and Sailrite's fabric calculator will come up. You'll find multiple choices. Click on the rectangular tarps for our application. Now enter the calculations you made for A and B into the fabric calculator. Enter 0 for hem allowance since that's already been accounted for, and then the width of the fabric. Hit the calculate button. The calculations we entered in require 11.83 yards of fabric, or 12 yards. You'll also notice that Sailrite's calculator includes how many panels. We'll have 2.96 panels of fabric for our retractable awning. Scroll down a little bit further and you'll see exactly how to cut each one of those panels out according to the fabric calculator. It is that simple. The Sailrite Fabric Calculator is exclusively designed for Sailrite by Jim Grant. After checking the measurements carefully for yourself, now cut out the panels. We're using the Sailrite Edge Hot Knife Package. This is a great hot knife that seals the edge of the synthetic fabric. This is a Sunbrella 100% solution dyed acrylic. For our retractable awning, we've chosen the Sunbrella Westfield Mushroom Awning Stripes. You may use a Sunbrella Awning Stripe material or a Sunbrella Marine Grade material. The Marine Grade materials are solid colors while the awning stripes are stripes. Deb has already marked the material to the appropriate measurements, and again she's using that hot knife to seal the edge of the fabric while she cuts. If you don't have a hot knife, you could use a wood burning tool or a soldering gun to seal the edge of the fabric. She's cutting out the appropriate number of panels for our retractable awning. You'll also notice that she's cutting on a piece of glass to prevent damage to the tabletop. There's no need to cut along the selvage edge from the factory, it's already sealed. However, if you have to cut the panel width smaller, please use a hot knife to seal that edge. Since we've chosen to use a striped Sunbrella fabric, we need to be sure the stripes are equally spaced. Deb's going to explain how to do that now.
Which is the same as this stripe, okay? This stripe measures outside of this edge to the outside of this edge is 2 inches. So when we join these together, overlay our piece so that we have our 2 inches, 1 inch to the other. So, okay, so we can see that there's a 1/2 inch into this seam to make that 2 inch. So what we're going to do is mark that. So it's going to be a 1/2 inch from this edge in. So we want to go along here, mark our 1/2 inch every so often.
Deb's chosen not to join the lines together with a straight line. You can do that if you'd like with your pencil or a soapstone pencil. To join each one of these panels together prior to sewing, we're going to use a seam stick basting tape for canvas. This is great because it helps hold the panels in place when you take it over to the sewing machine to sew them together. She's lining up the panel, the opposite panel, with the lines that she marked on the fabric. And she's being careful not to stretch one panel or pull one panel more than the other as she bastes them together. You'll notice the stripes on our Sunbrella awning stripe material are perfectly spaced. Now she's going to take it over to the Sailrite Ultrafeed LSZ sewing machine. You'll notice that Deb has scrolled up the material so it fits underneath the arm of the sewing machine nicely, and she's sewing the longest stitch possible right along the selvage edge of the fabric. We've chosen to use the Helios thread. You can also choose Tanara. It's a totally rot-proof thread. It's warranted for the life of the fabric. We'll also talk about other threads a little bit later on in the video. Now she's turning the panel around and flipping it over so that she can sew right next to the other selvage edge on the other side so she can see that edge. Many of our great Sailrite customers are concerned that large panels won't fit nicely underneath the arm of the sewing machine. If you can scroll the material as Deb is here, that's no problem. We'll even show you a little trick a little bit later on in the video as well. So we're sewing that other edge. 2 rows of straight stitches are quite sufficient per each overlapping seam. This seam is approximately 1 inch wide. Now we're going to place basting tape on the next panel that needs to be joined to our rectangular awning main frame, and we're going to scroll the fabric neatly here, and Deb's going to use clips to keep the fabric from unrolling. This is a neat trick, so watch what she does. These can be picked up at any box store, or you can use pony clamps that are picked up at a hardware store. But these work great. And that'll keep the fabric from unscrolling as she feeds it through the arm of the sewing machine. Peel off the transfer tape, revealing the glue, and then carefully baste the next panel in place. She's also basting this so the stripes are exactly the same width across the entire length of the awning. Now we'll follow that exact same procedure. Let's talk a little bit more about the threads. A Tanara or Helios P thread, which is a PTFE thread, is totally UV resistant. It will not rot. They're a little bit more expensive and a little bit harder to sew with. If you choose not to use that thread, you can use 100% polyester thread. The polyester thread is UV resistant but will rot over time. In a high concentration of UV, like in the tropics, the polyester thread may go 2 to 3 years before it starts to rot. In the Northeast Indiana location where we live, we expect the polyester thread to possibly last 8 to 10 years. So, it's your choice. You can choose a PTFE thread, which will never rot, or choose a 100% polyester thread that is rot resistant. For this awning, we have a couple more panels to sew together, but you get the idea of how to do it, so we're going to move on and talk about the hemmed edges on the sides. All of the required panels are now sewn together. Now we're going to discuss the hems on the sides of the awning.
We're going to have a 2-inch hem, so what we want to do is fold over to that line. Make your 4-inch, a line in there, make your 2-inch hem. Now easily on this one I can see where that 4-inch line is, and we'll just stick it all the way up.
As with almost any Sunbrella canvas job, we're going to use the double-sided tape again to create this single hem. There is no need to put a double hem here. In fact, a double hem will cause more problems for a retractable awning. That's why we use that hot knife to seal any edge that is not factory sealed. As we discussed earlier, a salvage edge from the factory is sealed. However, if you have to cut the panel smaller, you need to use a hot knife on that edge. If you find the Sunbrella doesn't stick well, you can crease it with a hard object, as Deb just did. Now we'll take that single hem over to the sewing machine and sew a row of straight stitches very close, about an 1/8 inch away from the raw edge. We're again using the longest stitch possible. That helps to prevent needle pucker phenomenon, which can shrink up the fabric. We're also going to sew a row of straight stitches down the middle of this 2-inch hem. It is not uncommon for the Sunbrella fabric to shrink as you're sewing long seams or hems. It can shrink as much as 1 inch per every 10 foot of sewing. So you may want to consider that when you're cutting your panels. If you use Sailrite's fabric calculator, you may want to put in a 1-inch hem to allow for any kind of shrinkage. It can always be cut down after you're done. Before creating the second hem on the other edge, you want to take a measurement, because you want to be sure that your fabric did not shrink up or is too large than required. You can always fudge this hem if needed. It does not need to be exactly 2 inches, so make adjustments here with this hem if required.
A little more than 2 inches, but that way you've got, see, I'm like a 1/2 inch over here. And you have to do the end hems before you do the cording hem at this end, so that your cording can go in and out. Otherwise, if you did that first and then did this, you wouldn't be able to get inside of your hem.
Thanks, Deb. Now we're going to cut the valance out of the main body of the awning. This is an easy approach to creating a valance at the same time you create the main panel. Deb is marking 3 lines along the width of our awning. The middle line will be the cut line where the two outer lines will be used as a reference to create the 1.5 inch sleeve for the cording. So after those lines are created, then we can just cut along the center line, and then we can fold the material over with a single hem to create a sleeve for the cording. We'll explain a little bit more in this drawing. In our previous measurements and calculations, we've accounted for the valance in the main body of the awning. So now we're just going to mark the bottom of the main body with these 3 lines as illustrated here, so that we can create the valance and create the sleeves at the same time.
Okay, this measurement here is the fold over for the hem. Come over. And this is the hem to fold over for the awning.
Before we cut the valance off of the main body, we're going to use the old valance as a pattern and take our pencil and mark the scalloped edge if you choose to have that. This is not required. If the scalloped edge is rather curvy, you may want to cut down the amount of curve. Using a gradual curve makes it easier to apply the acrylic soft braid binding that we will do in a later step. Taking it over to the Sailrite edge hot knife again and are cutting out the valance. You could cut this portion out with scissors. However, if you use a hot knife, it will seal that edge, and if your stitch is close to the edge, it's unlikely that the stitch will pull out from the edge of the fabric if a hot knife were used. Notice she's cutting on the center line. Make sure you do that.
Because you need the hem here and the hem here.
A few more simple steps and your retractable awning fabric replacement will be done. We need to create the sleeves for the cording, which are 1.5 inch at the top of the main body panel, the bottom of the main body panel, and the top of the valance panel. We're using the double-sided tape and folding this over to the line that we indicated at the bottom of the main body panel. We'll do that same procedure at the top as well, which we have not marked yet. And we'll also do that to the valance at the top edge. We'll take it over to the Sailrite Ultrafeed LSZ sewing machine and sew a straight stitch approximately 1/8 inch away from the raw edge. We'll use the longest stitch possible to avoid needle pucker phenomenon. Every time you begin a stitch, be sure to reverse to lock the stitch in place, and when you end a stitch. We need to now do that at the head here. We'll mark that to 3 inches, and we'll also mark the valance head at 3 inches and do that same procedure. Let's move on. To the scalloped edge, we'll install an acrylic soft braid binding. This binding is great for going around curves or scalloped edges. You'll notice that Deb is pulling the binding along its width to make it expand. It is very soft, and that's a wise thing to do before feeding it through a binder or even installing it by hand. We're going to use the right angle binder here and show you how to sew it on using that binder attachment. But a little bit later, we're going to show you how to do it with the sewing machine by hand as well, because you can do it both ways. There's no need to invest in a right angle binder, especially if you're only doing one of these scalloped edges. The right angle binder attachment makes this work quick and easy. However, it can be done by hand as well. You'll notice there at the beginning, Deb did a little bit of reversing to lock the stitch in place, and the binder does not go backwards, so you can only do a little bit at a time. Notice how Deb is working the fabric through the right angle binder. She's keeping that fabric right at the edge of the binder and working it back and forth as she feeds it through. We're also doing this with a zigzag stitch. A zigzag stitch ensures that we're going to catch the binding. You could do it with a straight stitch, but you're not always assured that you're going to catch the fabric and the binding. So if you have a zigzag, we recommend doing it with a zigzag stitch. There's more information about how to use the right angle binder under that product on the Sailrite website. Now let's show you how to do it by hand using a sewing machine. So we've disassembled the right angle binder from the Sailrite Ultrafeed LSZ sewing machine, and now Deb will show you how to install this acrylic soft braid binding via hand. Typically, the awning material would be fed into the sewing machine so that the bulk of the material were outside the throat of the machine, but since the rest of it was installed with the right angle binder, this is just the way it ended up. And you notice how she folds the material over the raw edge of the fabric gradually and only sews a few inches at a time. So it can easily be done by hand. It just takes about 3 times the amount of time that it would take if using the right angle binder. So don't be intimidated by this. Go slow, and if your sewing machine has a zigzag, use a zigzag. It'll take out a lot of the headaches that could possibly happen if you're using a straight stitch. Either way, it can be done easily, as shown here in the video. When Deb gets to the edge of the scallop, she'll reverse to lock the stitch in place. Now you could tuck that edge under with a single hem if you'd like, or you can go to the Sailrite edge hot knife and use that to seal the edges. You can also use a wood burning tool or a soldering gun, as explained
earlier.
Or they
could fold the end over if they wanted to too, instead of this. It'll take care of it.
And that's all there is to creating your own retractable awning body panel and valance. Now let's show you how to install it onto the home. We're going to pull our old spline cording out of the old awning panel, and we're going to reuse it. However, Sailrite does sell this if you need to buy new awning and sling chair spline cording. The length of cording in the roller will not include stop clamps, so it may be a little bit shorter than the length of cording that are used in the front bar. This is the main body panel, and notice the hems are facing each other, so this makes this the front. So we're feeding that cording that we took out of the old awning into that front sleeve. It may be helpful to have a second helper to help hold the fabric straight as you feed the cording back into the sleeve. The cording that goes into this front sleeve needs to be longer than the sleeve itself by a couple inches, so there should be some cording hanging out over the edge. Now this is the back portion of the main body panel, and it is going to be fed into the roller. It does not need to be longer there. Now, with the added help of another person, typically it takes 2 to 3 people to do this, you can feed it into the main roller and the front bar. Now Matt Grant will explain it more in detail.
All right, Eric's letting me talk now. So what we want to do, I've got the new panel set so that the hems are to the inside, and toward the house is, or the structure is, the part that would go to the extended portion of the awning, and it has the piping or the vinyl cord that hangs out a little bit on each end because the clamps will clamp it. On the back there are no clamps, it just slides into the extrusion here. So what we're going to do is we're going to feed the one in the front just a little bit in the right spot, because this extrusion right here is going to be for the valance. This one's for the awning. And then I'm going to feed this top one into the roller. Okay. Once we have them both in, we want to pull them in equally and feed them without ripping the material. And this is a spot where it helps to have 3 people, depending upon the size of the awning. So I'm actually going to have Eric set the camera back so that he can help us.
This may look cumbersome, but it is quite easy. As long as you have a few people supporting the fabric so that it goes through the extrusion straight, it's not too difficult. Just gently pull both the portion in the roller and the portion in the front bar evenly until the fabric is fed into the channel. So as you can see, Matt is underneath the awning, Hallie is all the way to the other end, and I'm in the front pulling it gently to ensure that the fabric does not rip on anything sharp. Obviously you're seeing it here in double time, so we're going fairly quickly. Easy process, but a little bit cumbersome.
Now wait. Okay, go ahead. Okay, how much do you have hanging out?
Top, it's right about to the edge almost.
Now about a half inch.
We're ensuring the fabric is centered in the frame structure.
Just okay, then go your way. What we're going to do is we're going to take the end cap off.
We've not removed the end cap on this end. We're going to do that so we can gain access to the stop clamps.
And now we know we have it centered pretty well. So I'm just going to look up here and make sure I end up right about there when I'm done, but I'm going to pull it this way so I can get this cord out. There we go. Now see, there's my original indentation where the screw goes. So I'm going to try and get it right back in that same spot. And now I'm going to slide the whole thing. I may have to get off the ladder and go over there and pull it. Yeah, I'm going to lock this down a little bit. And I am actually going to pull it from that side. Make sure this won't fall out. Loosen this up again. Okay, now we're on it. Pull that over there. Lined up. And now I can bite into this and get that good and snug. That will keep this piece from moving, the piece at the front, and we're good there. I'm going to leave the cap off for now because we have to do the other end, so we're going to move over to the other side. There we go.
Now that both stop clamps are in position, we'll ensure that the fabric is in the roller centered, and then we'll roll it up using our electric motor. If you don't have that, you can use the manual roller.
Just a little bit. I just want it to roll tightly. I'm pretty square on the back roller, are you?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Okay, once we have it with the canvas on and the arms pulled back in, now the canvas will keep the arms from springing out, so we can remove our simple line ties. And you notice that those weren't tied in any special manner. It really just has to be enough resistance to keep them from springing out. Now, you've also noticed that I've been using a motor to retract and extend the awning. But you don't need to do that. This particular awning also has a manual crank device here, so you could use your crank arm in order to do all of this as well. It's just not as quick as doing it with a motor.
We're going to reuse the cording that was in the Valance that we're replacing and install it in the new Valance. You'll notice that the cording is actually a couple inches longer on each end of the Valance.
I want to make sure my hems are to the back. Okay, whoop, right there?
Yeah.
Okay, let me lock this end in first. We want to have it hooked over the sunbrella like this so that when it clamps down, it's actually holding the sunbrella, not just the welt. And Jim, if you would, just gently pull on that end. Gently. Okay, right there. Do you have any black hanging out over there, Jim?
No, not yet.
Okay, how about there?
I don't see any.
And we'll deal with that later here. Whoops. Okay, let me have it now.
All right.
Okay, your way just a hair. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, right there. So if I don't have enough cord, I'm going to have to release the other end. Pull some cord.
I thought I had some cord off.
A little bit of cord, but not much.
We'll install the stop clamp here as well, and we're done. Now all we need to do is reinstall the end covers. The retractable awning fabric replacement is now complete. A lot of retractable awnings that you buy directly from a company will use a very inexpensive material like a polyester. That material or polyester material will typically rot in short order. Using a Sunbrella Marine grade or Awning grade fabric, as we have done in this video, will give you a fabric that will last years and years. In fact, it is guaranteed 10 years from the manufacturer. So the next time you're in the market for a retractable awning, or if you just need to replace the fabric as we've done here in this video, insist on using Sunbrella Marine grade or Awning grade fabric from Sailrite. For more instructional videos like this and product videos, be sure to check out the Sailrite website or subscribe to the Sailrite YouTube channel today. It's your loyal patronage to Sailrite that makes these free videos possible. Thanks for your support.